All right, let's jump in. We got 80 people on a Sunday afternoon. Welcome, everybody. I am Lisa Herrick. For those of you who are new, we had a whole bunch of new members join us in orientation today, which was really exciting. A lot of people. We often have one or two, which is wonderful, but today we had a whole bunch. So welcome to the new folks, and wonderful to see everybody, all familiar faces. So I think everybody is thinking this news is kind of amazing, shocking, whether you're disappointed or you're curious or you're excited. So today we are going to hear from a legislative candidate from Pennsylvania, Sara Agerton. I'm not sure if it's Agerton or Agerton, Jim, but she is running in a district that overlaps a congressional candidate, and voting for her, voters are going to come out and it's going to help sort of all up and down the ticket. You're going to hear more about that from Jim and from Sara. We had another guest speaker who had to bail out because of everything that's happening in the news, and he's involved with that. So we have Sara, and we have more time to talk with you all. I think what Mary was saying before, really, all I'm going to say today is just we have come out of this extraordinary period of uncertainty and chaos and frustration and worry and just bizarre things happening with the shooting in Pennsylvania. And it's just been a really, really stressful time. And one of the things I was thinking about just before this meeting was how long it took for us to create the US Constitution. Like the US Constitution, the creation of our US Constitution was a mess. Like it took 100 days to write it. It took 5 years to ratify it. It was full of fights and arguments and people wanting different interests and different parts of the country having different opinions. And I just sort of feel like we've come through another labor and delivery of this country, and here we are. We've birthed something. We don't know what we've birthed, but whatever it is, it feels like there's going to be a huge shift from uncertainty and chaos and frustration and worry to focus and concentration and I'm hoping unification to move forward in one direction and have clarity so that we can have messages for our voters and citizens that are clear and in English, in plain English, that people will understand and people will get behind, and we're going to win this election. And the grassroots participation in that is going to continue to be enormous. It has been enormous, and it's going to continue to be enormous. And I think 31st Street is going to continue to do what we do, which fits right into the goal of electing a Democratic presidential ticket, because we're going to get voters out and we're going to get these legislatures to gain Democratic majorities so that when we have a Democratic administration and a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House, we're going to start having legislatures that can pass laws that are good for their state citizens. So I feel like we were teetering on the edge of utter disaster, but also there's been this incredible opportunity for us to come together and make incredible change in the next 4 years. So I'm pumped. I hope you are pumped. And I'm going to turn it over to Jim and see what he has to say today. Thank you for coming.
Great. So time to unite. I've still got my Biden-Harris sign up, but I'll take it down before too long. And I do think we do now have a great opportunity, hopefully some clarity. And I will say that I'm going to go ahead and put up my slides just to get going. But we've been approaching this really what I would call sort of laboring in the vineyards, that we keep pushing the things we thought needed to happen, even notwithstanding who the presidential candidate was going to be. And now that we have some clarity, we can, keep doing that and press forward. So I'm going to talk about some somewhat nitty-gritty things because I think that's what we need to focus on. So the first is to focus on key issues. And also that the working class voter is really the key voter that we need to focus on, not the only voter. And we can only do so much, but I do think to the extent we can influence other folks and also in our own dealings, we can, try to do that. And a lot of what I'm going to say, which is not all that much, but is influenced by the fact that I've been doing canvassing every weekend with these kind of voters in Pennsylvania. And so my thoughts on this are influenced by that. Of course, that's not the only perspective, but I do think we have three main issues and that we should be primarily focusing on. Number one, look at any poll. It's still the economy. It's still cost of living. You'd hardly know it in terms of the dialogue that we've been seeing and any of what we've been doing. And I will say that what works very well when I talk to these voters is to talk about corporate price gouging, tax cuts for billionaires, and also that the Democrats are addressing it. Women's health and rights, obviously, that resonates very well with these kind of voters. Again, you target depending upon who you're talking to. And then I do think, there's an anti-MAGA set of messages that really work with people. There are people out there. They're sometimes called double haters. I think it's more like double dislikers. But when push comes to shove, the large majority really dislike Trump more than they dislike previously Biden or whoever's going to take his place. And, when I say he's a criminal, he's dangerous, he's wacko, he's old. You'll have a positive side to what I say to folks too. It doesn't sound like just like that, but anyway, it works. And in the orientation, one of our folks was asking about the House of Representatives. We are really focusing on Congressional District 10 in Pennsylvania. And if we can just do that, and that's our part, and we're enough to help flip that race, that will be terrific. And anyway, he's not liked either because he's a MAGA as well. He's independents that we've talked to in that district really do not like him. And then I want to talk a little bit about Project 2025 because I do think there's an opportunity there, but I think we have to go about it the right way. Now, I do like to show a little bit of data, and I hope you can see this. This just came out today. I saw it, that consumer confidence by these folks, Ipsos, they're very well respected, is at the highest level it's been in 2 years, which is great. We know that inflation's been coming down. In fact, last month it was actually negative. We actually had slight deflation, but people don't necessarily perceive it. And it's been taking time to this is maybe the most important sort of idea, confidence, or whatever that people have that will influence the election in many ways. Maybe I shouldn't exaggerate, but I think there's so many voters that you encounter that are affected by this and are disaffected by this. And if we're turning the corner a bit, that's going to help us. I will say that the data do not show as much improvement among lower income people, though there still is some. Okay, so Project 2025, I don't know if people can see this all the way across, but Navigator, very well respected organization that does polling. And this is 1,000 registered voters asking them about a whole gamut of things that are in there. And you can see these numbers are actually pretty astounding about how unpopular these various components are, both for individuals, but also in terms of what they're saying, hurting the country. And things like cutting Social Security, eliminating the weather service. I mean, in a way, the problem is almost too much here. And that's why I'm saying there's a need to target. I mean, there's a way we can sort of vilify, and it's already happening, 2025, the whole thing, and don't allow Trump to run away from it. The thing that I find is most intriguing is this stopping over. It's not really stopping overtime pay, but it's reducing and going after overtime pay. I can't think of an issue that would help us more among working class people than going after overtime pay. And I hope that we can do some targeting of that. So anyway, a little bit on issues. So we are definitely keeping our foot on the gas. Even before the day's announcement, we were going to keep our foot on the gas or feet. And for us right now, that means the state legislature. We've done our infrastructure support because the timing was right. And right now we are focusing on state legislatures. I think many of you know in Pennsylvania and North Carolina, because state legislatures are so important, but also it's for the up ballot. I really think that, believe that there's huge value there because these candidates, they're the ones that people know. They're the ones that get out and knock on the doors and have volunteers that knock on the doors. They have a smaller territory. And when they can turn out their voters, that will help everybody up ticket. So that's why, in addition to the value of the legislature, that we are so committed to, and many of you, I think, heard Melissa Walker last week. I hope you had the chance. If you don't, look at the recording. I mean, she is just dynamite making the case about why state legislatures are so important. So anyway, here they are, the ones from North Carolina. Again, we call these candidates a sort of sweet spot candidacies in the sense that they are almost all challengers. There's one hold Democratic seat, but they're all new. And we do that in part because, we want to win, but also we think that the incumbents have a lot more ability to raise money. And then here are the Pennsylvania candidates. We're going to hear from Sara Agerton in a little bit. And we have two Senate candidates, which, again, we're sort of going out and being aggressive in a way to support these two Senate candidates. We've talked to them. We think they have very good campaigns and very good potentials. The only way we're going to win the state Senate in Pennsylvania is if we go out and give it a good try, and we think we can. Okay, so who notices something about the colors here? You notice, we are the blue party, right? So notice that there are two shades of blue. The people from North Carolina insisted that the blue for their candidates had to be this Carolina light blue. So anyway, just to show you that we do try to please the people that we're trying to reach out to. Okay, so again, we do like to do this nesting. Again, part of the power up strategy, the up ticket. So we have two candidates in sort of northeastern North Carolina who are in the congressional district of the U.S. congressional race for Don Davis. I think he's favored, but it's still a sort of tilt blue seat, so we need to help him. But then also it's for all the statewide candidates, including the presidency, but there's a whole slew of them in North Carolina. And likewise, Sara Agerton, that we're going to hear from in just a couple of minutes, her district in Cumberland County is entirely within the U.S. district of the Janelle Stelson that we really want to win and beat Scott Perry, the odious Scott Perry. And they have a good number of statewide candidates, including for the presidency in Pennsylvania. So we're raising money for these people. And I want to say something about money because I have every confidence that once there's some resolution or even before, there's going to be a massive amount of money that's going to go to the national ticket. And I think that's a good thing. I have no problem with it. And Godspeed with that. But I also believe that these legislature races are not going away. And, you know, pound for pound, we're going to get a whole lot more by supporting these races than I think, you know, the marginal dollar that would go for the national ticket, much as I'm very happy that they will get plenty of support. So we're having you know, this fundraiser, and the goal was $280,000, which is an average about $20,000 for each of them. That makes a lot of difference. That's enough to move the needle for these people. And it will also, again, have the impact ballot. So we were going to have Jalen Nix from the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, but I got an email from him about an hour and a half ago saying that, sorry, he's got duties to perform because he's got to do something having to do with you know, the presidency and so forth. So we'll have to have him in another time. But that actually gives us a little more time to talk with this great candidate, Sara Agerton, in Cumberland County, that we like so well. So over to you, Sara.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Jem, for inviting me to speak. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and I'll tell you about the district. I am a social worker, so I've been doing that a little over 20 years. I have been very active in my community all of my life. We are a family of helpers. I was working the polls for a very long time and getting to know my community. And in that year of 2016, I walked home from the voting polls with, you know, like a lump in my throat. It was very hard for me to come home and tell my daughter that I didn't think that we would have our first woman elected president. And on that way home, I kept thinking, you know, what am I going to do differently? What is my role? I can't keep complaining about things if I'm not willing to step up. So it was a few years later, I ran for my municipal race in borough council. And I was the only woman, only Democrat elected. I knocked so many doors. So what you guys do and being out in front of the voters is what I knew early on instinctively that I needed to be out there talking to everybody. I wasn't very sophisticated with my campaign, so I didn't have a lot of guidance with minivan and all of those things. So we literally knocked everyone in Mechanicsburg, and I won by only 17 votes. So when you talk about every vote counting, it counts. When you are out knocking and talking to people, every single voter counts. And then it led me to helping to recruit for this district, which was being redistricted this last election cycle. And at the end of it, I was convinced that maybe I was talking about me running for this office. So I did run last time, and with your guys' support, we knocked a lot of doors. We knocked about 38,000 doors in our district, having great conversations about what we needed. You know, the challenge is when you're running against an incumbent who has settled into the district and appears to be, you know, a moderate, you really do need to have a lot of conversations, and you need to reach out beyond just Democrat voters. You need to talk to those independents, you need to talk to those Republicans, and especially those Republicans that don't like those words like extremists. They don't like the MAGA party. And so those conversations were had. Now, we came up short, but I knew that running 2 times was going to be what we needed to do. So in my district, we know that we have a lot of independents, so we continue to knock them. This is my second time running, a little bit more sophisticated every time I run, and we're getting out there all of the time to talk to those voters that fear those things that are at jeopardy in the state house. And, you know, those are a woman's right to choose. You know, that has come under attack, and thankfully in Pennsylvania, we had a +1 majority this last time. But every time something happens, everyone nail bites. We have to fundraise. We have to come back together and knock even more doors. So this time around, we're going to elect more Democrats so that we have more than +1 majority in the House. We need to protect public school funding. You know, that is really important in Pennsylvania. Schools are under attack, and we heard that, you know, this past week, talking about public education. I'm a product of public education. I'm a product of the state school system. It is very, very important that we are fighting for those things for our children, and that every child across Pennsylvania has an even playing field. We can do this by getting out and knocking. And of course, it's so important to energize the base. And I think, being in this district, we have a lot of great things coming to us. One, we have the momentum. We are fueling ahead. Polling has come back and it's showing that, our state house races are the ones that we can win. And we know that we can do that. Right now, I'm neck and neck with my incumbents. And I plan on continuing that momentum and taking those points that we earned over the last 2 years and just helping her retire. It is really, really important that we talk about all of these things. And yes, Project 2025 is one of those things that comes up at the doors. And when we're talking with our voters about issues, those are, talking about, yes, I understand the economy's tough. I'm a social worker. I am not wealthy by any means. So I'm very, we have those relatable conversations and we talk about what we can do at the state level, which also talks about this congressional seat that's up there. So, I would be so happy to see Scott Perry go. And we have a candidate that we can partner with to be able to keep bringing out those voters. Every day we have those conversations about what Pennsylvania is going to do, not just for my district in the 88th district, but also what we're going to do for the country when we flip both seats. I'm excited to have those conversations and to be at those doors. And it is just something that you do every week. And with volunteers coming up and volunteers from our campaign, having those conversations allows people to vent a little bit. We are in this time of uncertainty. We're in this time where people don't feel secure, but having someone at their door, it's amazing. Every week I have someone say to me, this is the first time I've ever talked to a politician who's knocked at the door. This is the first time that someone's come out and listened to me. And I think that persistence and precision, that's your tagline, making sure that we are doing that every week. I'm very different from my opponent. I just saw that question and I really want to address that. As a social worker, I believe in a woman's right to choose. And that is not only just for her to be able to have contraception, but to be able to make a decision about her body with her doctor and her family, not the government saying what she should have to do. Also, I believe that no woman should be forced to pay for a funeral of a fetus at the hospital, whether it be an abortion or a miscarriage. The government has no right making those decisions for a woman at any time. And we need to be able to protect that. I am a believer of public school funding. So, charter schools that take away and defend our public schools, that is disheartening to me because public schools, our teachers are our first responders, right? They are the first ones to report if a child's in need of food, if they're in need of clothing, if there's suspicion of abuse. If we don't fund our public schools, our children are more at risk. If we don't have pre-K access for more children, they're at risk. Children don't deserve to be discriminated based on where they're born. We should not have those barriers for kids. I'm also a big believer of infrastructure. And infrastructure is so important all over the country. And we know that having money come in from the federal government, we just had a bridge project that was approved with Secretary Buttigieg that came in to help us fund some of those things because of Pennsylvania. I'm sure when you guys cross the border into Pennsylvania, the joke always is you hit all of those potholes. It is so, so important that we are fighting that. And we're also preserving our green space because green space has so much to do with our infrastructure. So it's an easy argument for me to be able to talk about that. But as a social worker and a social worker in healthcare, one of the things that I see way too often is access to affordable and accessible healthcare. People don't have insurance that can help them make those decisions about preventative healthcare. They're making decisions about whether they go to the doctors if they're sick. Their medications are expensive. We need to make sure that we're addressing this, and we have to include mental health and addiction services in healthcare. Far too often, people are limited, and we don't have enough providers. We don't have enough providers that actually have appointments physically. We have a lot of telehealth that has come out, but sometimes people need to be seen and heard in an office. So we need to be looking at that and supporting that. I've been a big proponent of a health clinic in my area that we helped open this past year, and that provides fee-based appointments on income, which gives a lot of people more access to healthcare. And it's also on a bus route, because we also forget that people don't always drive. Those are the things that really set me apart from the person I'm running against. She votes against all of these things all of the time. She lives in a different world than her constituents. And I want to make sure that we're highlighting how people really live in Pennsylvania and how we're going to push forward a better neighborhood for everybody. And we need to be fierce and loud about that, and making sure that we're fighting for those things. So how am I going to win this race? Because we know I didn't win last time. That is persistence. And that's persistence at the doors. We're going to be knocking, and we're going to be vocal, and we're going to be loud. And I really think elections are one at the door. And so that's what we're going to be doing, getting out there. We're having so much fun having those conversations. I'm getting tan. I'm usually pretty pasty right now. And I plan on losing at least a jean size over the summer, dedicated to making sure that we're knocking everybody. And I think that this is the year with Janelle and I getting everyone enthused and out, and then being able to support a ballot candidate, whoever that may be. I'm excited for this. I think that the country, the state, everyone is looking for some answers and some security. And I think our party offers that. And when we talk about who they're voting for, we're voting on ideals right now. We're voting on, how we want to move our country forward, how we want to move our state forward, how we want to move our communities forward. And that comes from our Democrat Party. So I thank you for this time to talk a little bit about me. And I know that we'll have some questions, but I appreciate this time.
Thanks so much, Sarah. I'm Aaron Hamburger. I'm the membership person and also the question fielder for the Q&A portions of our meetings. So thank you so much for being here. And I see that Jim has a hand up. He has a question he would like to ask. Jim?
Right. So I love the door knocking, but I'm also interested in what other ways you're reaching out to your constituents, mail, digital, other kinds of radio. What else have you got in store? Over.
Yeah, so it's we have a great market. So we will be doing an aggressive mail campaign and drawing the contrast between me and my incumbent opponent. I think it's really important to be able to highlight the differences, especially when you have someone that has kind of settled into the community as someone that has disarmed people because she participates in a lot of events. We're going to draw that stark contrast between us. And of course, we're going to have a digital campaign that goes out there, talking about our race, highlighting what I have done, what my service has done at the municipal level, and what I'd like to do on the state level. And the other thing that's really exciting is that we live in a market that we could get on TV, and it's not as expensive as the rest of the state. So our dollar goes a lot further when it comes to being up on TV.
Great. I had a question, which is, we're obviously, working to raise money for you. How will that money be put to use in your campaign?
Absolutely. In so many different ways. So one, we are looking to hire another field organizer to be out there to make sure that we're recruiting volunteers, making sure that we have people knocking in an organized way and coordinating with all of the campaigns, but also, going towards our mailing. Mail is not cheap. Postage just went up, so we had to adjust our budget. Happy to support the post office, but it does hurt the piggy bank. So those are the things that we're just going to put it right into the campaign, making sure that our messaging is out there for everyone in the 88 to hear.
Great. And I heard you say you're interested in TV. Is radio something that you're thinking about?
So we have, I'm sure that we can look at the radio market. We don't have the response I've gotten. It hasn't been huge for radio, but that's not something we've eliminated.
Okay. We have another question that just came into me. Could you profile the district that you're in, like the demographics, key employers, typically red or blue, et cetera?
Yeah, so our demographics are shifting a little bit. So, majority Caucasian area. We do have a high Southeastern Indian American population here that we are talking with and working with. Very small minority population here, but it is growing. The district is split probably +4 Republican, but with an independent voter registration of about 7,000. So it is definitely doable. Definitely something that we can overcome. We have a lot of employers in this area. We are right across the river from the Capitol, so there's a lot of state employees there, a lot of government employees, but we also are a pretty large medical community. So we have about 3 different major hospital systems in this area with multiple hospitals. So healthcare providers are huge in this area. Also a lot of school districts, so we have a lot of teachers and some union workers all over this place.
Great. How big an issue is housing and the ability to buy a first home?
Yeah, so that's a growing problem here. And I serve as the president of the Cumberland Perry Housing Authority. And so what we're finding is that people can't afford their first house. There's a rental problem, but rental prices are also soaring. My daughter just moved out of my house. I have a 4-bedroom house. She moved into a 1-bedroom apartment. Her rent is higher than my mortgage. So this is the reality of this area. So we know, and we are looking to fix that problem, but it's a difficult problem. And it will continue to be difficult. I know I was lucky, I'm old enough that I was able to buy my first house, was able to go through an FHA program, be able to put that 20% down. It's saving money, right? When you're living paycheck to paycheck, we really, really need to make sure that we are focusing on those first-time home buyers and incentivizing those folks to be able to afford those houses.
Great. Another question that came in, are you familiar with the Courier news media, the social media outlet, to help get your word out to voters in your district?
No, I am not, but I wrote that down and I will become familiar with it. Thank you.
We actually, we did a big effort to raise money for them, and they're very active actually on the socials. I'm following them. Great. One person has asked if you can share the letter regarding your position on issues, the one that goes to prospective voters with us, so we can be more familiar. And then Jim has a question. How has your experience on the Mechanicsburg Council helped you understand the needs of your constituents?
Yeah. So the first thing, it kind of set perspective for me about how difficult and slow sometimes government can be with great ideas coming in. But I have enjoyed getting to listen to problems in my community and trying to solve them. One of the biggest problems that we had was an infrastructure problem when I came into service. And my first question to the manager was, tell me what the plan is for paving our streets. And what I had found is everyone was so excited to have never raised taxes and always have a balanced budget. They did not have a 10-year plan for the borough. And I'm a planner. I believe that this has taught me that we need to talk about the things that we may not be able to afford and come up with a plan on how we're going to put programs into place. I'm listening to all of those things. I'm happy to say that we balanced our budget and we were able to pave $2 million worth of streets this last year. We were also able to bring in $2.5 million worth of DCNR grants to be able to improve our parks so that they're handy accessible, so that people can come in. We've paved walking paths for folks. But listening to people and their needs has been one of those things that I enjoy. And I know being a representative, one of the biggest jobs is being in constituent services. So listening and responding to people's needs is what you have to do to be a good legislator. I may have strong opinions about certain things, but if that doesn't suit the needs of my constituents, it does me no good to be able to have those ideas. So listening and planning has been the thing that I think has been the most eye-opening, and being able to talk with people that don't share the same views about things with me and coming up with a solution. And sometimes, having that compromise across the aisle to say, listen, this is better for the community. We can move that needle just a little bit. May not be as far as I wanted to, but we have to get that moved so that we can serve our constituents.
I think, one question is, what do Democrats do right and what do Democrats do wrong in Pennsylvania? And I think that idea of listening is just so important. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone canvassing where somebody said, nobody ever just asked for my vote or listened to me. And so I think the more we can knock on those doors and help you to knock on those doors, the more we can help the cause. So Sara, we thank you so much for joining us today. That was amazing. Let's all give Sara another big hand. And then I want to turn the microphone over to Mary, who I believe is going to tell us about, I believe, our fundraiser on Wednesday. Is that what you're going to talk about, Mary?
Well, I'm going to make 2 asks.
Good.
And, but just to set the stage a little bit, you know, I feel that something has shifted today. And it really feels good. We had a new member meeting before the general meeting started, and we had more new people show up today than we've ever had before. We had, I think, 19. I had to, of course, subtract the people who are part of our leadership, but I think we had 19 new people. That tells me that people are energized to do something to make a difference. And I see Karen Baratz nodding her head, endorsing that message. So I welcome the fact that something has shifted. So, you know, I think Jim and Sara between them have made the case for why state legislature races are so important. And as I listen to you, Sara, I want to highlight the 3 Ps. I think you are a planner. I think you are polished, and I think you are persistent. And the idea that you would say, starting out, before you even, you know, ran your first time, saying, well, it's going to take my running 2 times in order to win this office. That is really impressive to me. So that 3rd P, the persistent P, particularly resonates with me. So if you loved Sara as much as I did, and if you believe Sara and Jim have both made the case for state legislatures, there are 2 things you can do. First, you can go in the chat and find the links to contribute to the North Carolina slate and the Pennsylvania slate. And I'm confident that our wonderful Erin will put them in one more time right while I'm talking, so that you all have no difficulty in finding them. And the second thing you can do, thank you, Erin. See, Erin always delivers too. The second thing you can do is agree to be a co-host. And all a co-host means is reaching out to the people that you know, whether it's your college roommate or the parents of your kids' friends or a colleague at work, who you believe care as much as you do about saving our democracy, and maybe in particular the people who've been complaining about what's going on, because there's something incredibly healing is the word I'm going to use. There might be a better word about taking all that frustration and upset about what's been going on and channeling it into concrete action. So I put my email in the chat a little while ago, but I'm going to ask Erin to put it in one more time. If you send me your name, I will send you the invitation, and all you do is send it out to at least 10 people. So thank you if you say yes to both of my asks, and still thank you if you only say yes to one of them, but you have to say yes to one of them. And the last thing I want to say is I just want to call up a phrase that we all associate with the British during World War II. And that phrase was, keep calm and carry on. This is a time for keeping calm and carrying on, identifying what we can do to make a difference and doing it. So thank you for being here today. And thank you if you said yes to one or the other or both of my 2 asks.
Thanks, Mayor. So we are going to pivot to talking to you about some of our outreach. Michelle Henbach is going to talk to us, and then Joe Esposito. Both of them are handling other things that you can do in addition to co-hosting. Michelle.
Yes, hi, hello everyone. I've been up to Canvas a couple times already in Harrisburg this year. I was up there for Sara, and I've been up there for Janelle. And my purpose today is to encourage more people to take the plunge to doing this person-to-person voter contact, because there's nothing quite like it. Jim, were you going to share my slides? Whoops. Hold on a sec. It's coming up. There we go. Yes. So as you've already heard that we're going up primarily to South Central Pennsylvania. From my home in Bethesda, it's about a 2-hour drive. Very little traffic, very pretty scenery. So I highly recommend it. And I'm not going to get into great detail right now about the candidate or the opponent. You've heard a little bit about it. We will educate you plenty about the candidate before you go out. But the goal is to really just to try to bring more people out there. Could I have another slide, please? Yes. So here are the dates that are coming up. So we have one coming up this Saturday, coming up the 27th, and Mary, who's already spoken, and her husband Dan are the co-leaders. And then we have some other experienced, either members of our leadership team or other experienced 31st Street people leading our canvases for the rest of this summer. And then after Labor Day, we will be going every Saturday. And if you want to go on a Saturday that we're not covered there in that calendar, we can hook you up with other people, other groups that are going from nearby. And you're also going to be seeing soon more information about fieldwork opportunities in general, canvassing, phone banking, letter writing. That'll be coming out in a newsletter strictly focused on these opportunities that Joanne and George, 2 members of the leadership team, are going to be putting out soon. Next slide. Yes, so why canvass? You heard a little bit about this from Sarah, but it truly is the most effective way to get out the vote. And right now, when you go in the summer, what's really nice is you're doing a lot of just sort of putting the person's name in front of the voter. People aren't aware of the candidates. And so it just really helps to get that name and messaging out. We also help to identify and register new potential Democrats and new volunteers. And I personally find it very rewarding just to get out there and talk to people beyond my blue bubble, which is where we all live right here in Northwest DC and Northern Virginia and Maryland. Next slide. And one thing that Jim and the other members of the leadership team have really worked on over the years, and I've watched it get better, is the training support that we provide. So we do a Zoom orientation every Thursday evening before a canvass. It's an hour maximum. And before you get on the Zoom orientation, we will send you via email fact sheets and resources about the candidate and about the district. And then we get on the Zoom, we talk about how to have the conversation, how to talk to voters at the door, how to deviate from the script and make it sound more personal. We also work very hard with the campaign, with people like Sarah and her staff, Janelle and her staff, on getting good neighborhoods to walk through, so that you're not spending a lot of time going, long distances between houses, that you have what we call dense neighborhoods with voters who are critical to winning the race. So that means you're talking to a lot of people who are registered Democrat but don't perhaps consistently vote every year. You're also talking to independents, and you're talking to some people that have been identified as possible crossover Republicans. Because as Sarah mentioned, in these districts, you can't just win the Democratic votes alone. You need to get some other voters. We help facilitate carpooling, and we definitely will arrange canvassing buddies if that's something that you want to do. Canvassing these days, for people who haven't done it in a long time or have never done it, just like everything else, there's an app for it called Minivan on your smartphone. And we teach you how to use that app, and that has in there the name of the voter that you're going to, the house you're going to. It has the person's voting history, as a place you can write a note down, like this person would like a yard sign, and you score the individual that you speak with in terms of whether they're likely to vote Democrat, strong voting, lightly voting, unsure, or lightly opposed, strongly opposed. And that's all really important information for the campaign when they go back out again, either in person or on the phone. So I can't speak more highly about the way we do the training. And I've had other local groups have copied our training, and they also now, a lot of them do training before you get out there. So next slide. And that's going to be for Joe, who's going to talk about phone banking soon. I just want to add one final word about canvassing. The first time I canvassed was in 2017. I had never done it before. And you can do this. It's not hard. And we provide the support with you. So if anybody is hesitant or not sure about it, I would encourage you to attend one of our Zoom trainings on a Thursday night, even if you're not signed up to go that Saturday. We'd welcome you to come in and learn during that and have your questions answered. And we will put in the link, how you can sign up for this Saturday or for the one in August. Thanks. Joe, are you here?
Thank you, Michelle. If you're not in a position to canvass with Michelle and the others, or if you have time to help us during the week, we'd love to have you join us to phone bank. Jim, could you put up the slides, please? Well, let me tell you, while Jim's looking for the slides, why I enjoy phone banking. It's because it gives me the opportunity to interact with voters from my climate-controlled and easily walkable home. The good calls are gratifying and encouraging. The other calls provide wonderful stories to tell, like the voter in 2020 who couldn't decide between Biden and Trump, but absolutely loved Obama and hoped he would run for a third term. Unlike the people on this Zoom, most voters do not begin to focus at all on the election until after Labor Day, probably well after Labor Day. So phone banking in the summer enables us, like with canvassing, as Michelle mentioned, to introduce candidates to voters and get a real head start on name recognition, which is particularly important for the down ballot races. Further phone banking at this point helps to make the calls lists more accurate by identifying wrong numbers or voters who've moved. When we're doing just before the election, the get out the vote calling, an accurate call list is a huge advantage. Unlike in 2016, when I called a number in Philadelphia a day or two before the election, and the person who answered said his daughter, who was the voter I was trying to reach, had moved away 12 years earlier. Jim, next slide, please. And please know that we're strategic in selecting the phone banks that we're presenting to you. We vet them for training and support, and Michael Friedman, Michelle, and I have tried all three of the phone banks that we're currently actively involved in and that we're going to present to you today. And without further ado, slide 4, please, Jim. Thanks. And the phone banks are, first, Hadley Haas. Hadley is running for Pennsylvania legislature in a highly flippable district in the western suburbs of Pittsburgh against an incumbent who is on the wrong side on reproductive freedoms and workers' rights. We're phone banking for Hadley Haas Wednesdays from 5 to 7 p.m. We're also phone banking on Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. for Janelle Stelson, a local newscaster who, as you heard, is running against Scott Perry, the Freedom Caucus leader who was one of the plotters in the scheme to overthrow the 2020 election. Enough said about Mr. Perry. And third, finally, we're supporting a voter protection effort to ensure that Pennsylvanians are registered to vote and get their ballots in and counted on time. For example, people who think they've registered but haven't received their voter registration cards, which likely means that the Board of Elections doesn't show them as registered. Or voters whose mail-in ballots for the April primary were not received in time and thus were not counted. We're encouraging them to get their votes in quicker. And this phone bank is on Sundays from 3 to 5 p.m. and also Tuesdays from 6 to 8 p.m. So there's several options here in terms of candidates or voter protection and several times. We also anticipate that over the coming weeks, these phone banks will add more time slots for calling, which may help with your schedules. So please use the links that are going to be put in the chat to sign up for one or more of these phone banks. As many phone banks, as many dates as you possibly can. And if you have any questions at all about phone banking, please feel free to call me. My email was on the first slide, but hopefully it'll be also in the chat. It's spo2020win@gmail.com. That's SPO2020win@gmail.com. And thank you all.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. There are a few questions in the chat about other kinds of outreach. I think that the shortest answer is that we are going to be starting up our outreach newsletter, which is separate from the one that I send every week. Joanne and George, I haven't looked through my Zoom. Joanne or George, are either one of you here?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
go ahead,
first
George.
newsletter. Oh, go ahead,
Thinking
Joanne.
about that?
Go ahead, Joanne.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, we are, George and I are currently working on the relaunch of our fieldwork newsletter. It'll go out tonight and every Sunday night. And it will list all the opportunities. So canvassing, of course, and then also phone banking and letter writing.
Thank you. So right now we don't have a texting campaign. If one comes to our attention and it seems like it's well run, or it seems like it would be good for us to connect members to that, if you're interested, Joanne and George will figure that out, and it'll be in the outreach newsletter. So look for that on Sundays. My regular newsletter usually comes out during a weekday, like Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. Okay. Any other general questions? We have just a few minutes to go. And if there are just any other general questions for any of us, for Jim or Sarah or anybody, feel free to, okay, Catherine has a raised hand wherever you are. Catherine.
Hi. I am working with a specialized community that has a big strategic overlap with you guys. And there are some specific candidates they have an interest in, like Susan Wild, for example. I see one of your recommended State House candidates is in her district. But I'm putting together a list of priorities across the US that I can mobilize this particular community on. Who would I talk to get the nitty gritty on the lists of recommended candidates that you guys are working with?
How to get sort of more specific information about specific candidates that you can write up and share with your community? Is that what you're?
Yeah, if I come to you with a list of, say, House candidates, how can I figure out the overlap with the candidates that on the state legislator level that you guys think are promising?
I think Jim would be the person to talk to. Jim, is that?
Yeah, you're with a Ukrainian group. Did I hear? Is that right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to talk to you. I put my email in the chat and let's talk.
Excellent. Is yours the SPO 2020 win or?
No, that Jim will put his in the chat. That was Joe. SPO was Joe, and this is Jim. And you can always, if you get befuddled, you can always email me. You'll get a newsletter from me every week, and you can always email me and I will connect you to whoever you're.
It's in.
It's in the chat. Shelton AD6.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I wanted to say something about Sarah. Just that, we have a lot of criteria in a way when we select these candidates, but one of them is whether we think they'll make a good legislator. And it's not just that we want a blue vote. We do, of course, want that. In many ways, that's the most important thing. But we do look for people we think, because doing good legislation is not easy. It's hard work. And you heard her talking about looking at issues, coming to compromise and so forth. That's exactly the kind of thing that we're looking for. Over.
And thank you for joining us, Sarah. It's wonderful to meet you, and good luck with everything you're doing. And thank you for running again.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Any other last minute questions from anybody? And if I don't see you,
I have a couple that came up in the chat that I've logged if you want to entertain those.
Feel free.
So one question that came up earlier was about, I think this was for Sarah, talking about guns and religious interference in public life. Are those important issues on a local level or too controversial to take up for your campaign?
So it's interesting. We're central Pennsylvania. There's a lot of hunters in the area, but most gun owners in this area want responsible gun reform. So I think as long as you're talking about it from that stance of having responsible gun ownership, making sure that, you know, tracking lost or stolen guns, people are not offended by it. I think the old NRA like scare tactics in this area has kind of taken a back seat. We do have gun shows and, you know, those types of things. So that is a point of conversation. But I don't feel like it's definitely a topic that gets people really upset anymore. We're in a neutral. We have had an interesting thing happen to our school boards. Moms for Liberty has taken over 2 school districts that are in my district. So it is very interesting to see their religious views being put on at the school district level and impacting our children, especially our trans youth. And so that is an area of contention. So we do have to wade through those extremist views. But as far as we have really great churches in the area that are very supportive. We have a lot of Presbyterian churches here that, you know, do a lot of outreach to our youth. So I think that, you know, although there are some extremists, I don't feel like we are in an area that that's the majority. No 10 commandments yet, but I'm sure that that may be happening. I do try to attend some school board meetings just as support for our youth. We actually had a pretty controversial school board meeting come up a couple months ago where they had uninvited an author who was gay to speak to children in a middle school. And so we went to the school board meeting, really just upset that the school board made that decision. 5 hours of testimony from students and their parents had the school board reverse their decision only by 1 vote. But listening to the youth of our children, I have to tell you, I talk about this all the time. It refilled my cup. They were so amazing to listen to, and it brought hope to a really bad situation. And the author came and he spoke. And I think, you know, with all bad things, hopefully there's a happy lining behind there. And you know, this area is definitely one that could teeter either way if we don't keep strong.
Great. Okay. Let's see. One person asked about TikTok. That is a perennial subject that comes up during leadership meetings. I don't know who's going to handle it. We do have a Facebook presence. So, you know, who knows, maybe Instagram will be in our future. I don't know about TikTok. And then one person said, I hesitate to phone bank because even my politically engaged friends and family in competitive districts hate the tsunami of calls they get. How do we get comfortable, address this challenge? I would say by joining the phone banks that we have vetted for you, because we've tried them out, you know, and we pick particularly focused ones on issues like helping people, you know, who have lost their voter registration, for example. So it's not going to be your typical phone bank. But I would say if you don't like phone banking, go canvassing, and then you don't have to phone bank, and then you don't have to even deal with that problem. Yeah, Joe?
Aaron, may I add just one thing? If you're phone banking now in July and August and early September, people aren't getting other phone calls except from commercial sorts of interest. So they're not getting political calls. So I've been doing some phone banking for the past few weeks. I've gotten none of that. Oh gosh, I'm overwhelmed with political calls. So it's a great time to do it if you're interested.
Great. Okay. Does 31st Street have any action with DLCC? I do not believe that we.
So I was going to answer that in the chat, but actually not directly, but we do work very closely with the States Project to get really good data and information on state legislature races and a lot of state key informants.
Great. Do you have TikTok, Sarah?
Oh, I'm not allowed. My campaign manager says no.
Okay.
And it's funny because I think I missed the TikTok. I'm 44. So like my daughter's into TikTok who's 19. No, I'm not interested yet.
All right. Good. Okay. Any other comments or questions? I think we're kind of ready to wrap up. Lisa, do you agree?
Okay. So thank you all for being here. Before I sign off, I was just going to say goodbye with a quote from the show of Hamilton. And if you've seen it, I bet you know what quote I'm going to use. It's from Washington's moment of deciding he's not going to run again. And I happen to be on the Delaware shore. I just came down with friends for the weekend. I'm right down the beach from Joe Biden. And at this moment, I feel really, really grateful to him. And for those of you who have belonged to 31st Street for a long time, you know that when I do this kind of thing, I always get choked up. Don't be alarmed. It just happens to me. I'm fine. All right. So this is from the scene where George Washington tells Hamilton he's going to step down. And Hamilton is shocked and appalled. So it's just a little part of the quote. So Hamilton says, as far as the people are concerned, you have to serve. You could continue to serve. No, said Washington, one last time. The people will hear from me one last time. And if we get this right, we're going to teach them how to say goodbye, you and I. Mr. President, they will say you're weak. No, they will see we're strong. Your position is so unique, so I will use it to move them along. Why do you have to say goodbye? If I say goodbye, the nation learns to move on, and it outlives me when I'm gone. Thank you, Joe Biden. Great to the end. We're moving on. Thank you all for being here.